So I am going to say, as a country, as a nation, as a civilization, as a humanity, we must be pro-life. Everybody is pro-life. We don't plan to kill our own offspring. Stevie.
Johnny boy.
Welcome.
Always great to be welcomed.
Well, I'm glad you feel welcome. What an amazing couple of weeks we've been. We haven't been online, and this is what happens when you get old. You get to kind of do these things sporadically, and hopefully all 18 followers will follow us again.
All 18 of you. We played 18 holes of golf. What the heck? 18's a number today.
I mean, hey, it's it grows one seed at a time. You plant the seed, you water the seed, and we'll see how it grows and how many people. So we're getting a lot of views. So I'm seeing that, there's lots of plays on our stuff because I think that, the information that we've been sharing is unique. We're not arguing per se. We're providing, some fresh perspectives, and I think for the most part, it's having some positive.
It is. What we've tried to do, or what I'm trying to do, and you are too, is whether you have the same view or opposing view, it's not my job to convince you that my view's right and yours is wrong. It's sort of accept it, ponder it, and maybe learn from it and whatnot. And that's kind of where I think America has sort of taken a deep breath after the election, and rather than some pointing fingers in the Harris campaign, I think that America just seems a little more relieved right now. I know the people that I know that are very political minded. Since I delved into politics and I'm being pulled back into the political arena right now, it's interesting what this election is doing all the way from the, not only on the federal level of Trump, but also the trickle-down effect that it's going to have in the state. There is some pretty interesting trickle-down effects with Rubio going to be gone and DeSantis being turned out, and some stuff that that maybe in a future podcast I can share with you some of the stuff I know.
Well, I do find some of that interesting, and obviously, I mean, if you follow X, you get every possible angle on this. That they put this guy Gates up for Attorney General with the idea that there's no way he's going to get confirmed, but the next guy, they're going to be able to come up with someone that probably would have been shot down in the beginning, but because they lead with this really chaotic, dark.
You think that was Gates, a strategy?
Well, I don't think
that does make sense.
Yeah. By the way, what I think, my thoughts are not about the politics.
You're
my
observing
thoughts are,
that could be a strategy.
Well, and those were one of the things that I heard, and I thought that kind of makes some sense, right? And now all of a sudden, DeSantis appoints him, because the governor gets to appoint him, and all of a sudden he appoints Gates to be the senator to replace Rubio.
Gates? You mean the proposed
Gates has been proposed for Attorney General. He gets declined on Attorney General. Rubio gets appointed. Yeah. Gates gets appointed as the state senator.
Is it Gates or Waits?
Gates.
Oh, I thought it was with a W.
No. So Gates all of a sudden now could potentially be, granted, I don't know what the term is, but basically the governor can appoint him. They appoint him to do that. Now all of a sudden he's got 2 years to prep, and now all of a sudden he's running as an incumbent. So that offers a lot of benefits. And then maybe even the guy who just our governor, he could run for Senate.
DeSantis?
Yeah.
He's termed out, and there's some maneuvering right now in the on the state level, even somewhat locally, that's posturing to run for governor. So you'll see some interesting stuff in 2025.
Who's your early on pick? Do you have any curiosity or any interest, or do you?
Myself?
Yeah. Oh, you're going to be the senator.
I'm going to run for governor. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, no, I was going to say, that's a pretty high bar, my friend.
I've heard some rumors, and I don't know that they're strong enough to put out there on the air. But the effect that I heard would be a current politician running for governor, resigning his current legislative position, and then someone in place here locally being put in his position. And then,
what about our state rep? Right here where you have Donaldson, is it?
Mm-hmm. Trump, they
Do you
love
think,
each other. Trump
well, I'm thinking he may have a place in the administration too. I don't
might.
know.
Or
Is it possible that he may want to run for governor?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty powerful candidate.
He is.
I do.
And then his
Politics
spot,
aside, he just seems like he's a buttoned up guy. He's smart. He's intelligent, and
yeah, that's kind of part of the rumor mill I was alluding to was Donaldson's going to resign his position in early 25 and do a 2-year campaign to run, for governor, or if somehow Rubio goes and DeSantis appoints himself in Rubio's spot for the Senate or something, then it'll be there's some interesting talk.
lots of dynamics that can happen. Cool.
Yeah.
So, the outcome of the election, what was your belly response to that?
Relief.
Relief.
Yeah, absolute relief. I mean, when I ran for office here in the summertime and got to know a lot of the local Republican Party people, and they're very loyal to Trump. And in fact, I'm actually a member of the Republican Party now, and was appointed precinct committeeman, and maybe following another career path here locally. But I just think relief, and surprise, because I think the general fear was that if Trump was elected, that there would be riot in the streets and whatnot. But to me, it just, like, the people I know in the Republican Party and the people that I know, just friends and family and foes and Whiskey Creek members, everybody just seems relieved and a little more relaxed. That's kind of how I feel.
Do you have, obviously, my own roots being from Boston and being a little bit more on the liberal mindset or frame of mind or thinking angles on things, I kind of have a lot of people on the left in my network, and a lot of them have been freaking out. But I do sense that there is, we talked the last couple of weeks about some of the propaganda and the hype, and it just feels as if the hype is over, and CNN and MSNBC, and they're trying to keep the hype going, and they're, and it's just like everything is insane, everything is hyperbole, everything is way over the top, and I just think that the people are just done with it. Like there is that subset of the crazy foaming at the mouth, progressive left that's never going to be happy, but I feel as if the vast majority, and the fact that Trump won in a landslide, winning the popular vote as well as the the electoral college, kind of gives him a mandate, and I do feel also that there is a sigh of relief, and the big fear was a big pushback from the left. You remember when he first got elected, and you had the pink hats, and then there were these massive protests. None of that is happening, and there's just not an appetite for that, I don't think, anymore.
I think everybody's tired of the negative rhetoric and the fear of violence, and we've said a lot of times in this podcast that fear of failure and fear itself is just a polarizing effect. But I think that when Biden resigned the race and Harris came in, I think there was a big, you call it hype, there's just a big play of Harris, because I think everybody almost feels sorry for Biden, and we were fearful that he might win, and that might not have been a good thing considering his health, what appears to be, and then so they had a good honeymoon period. I think America was really excited about having Harris in, and I think even the Republicans were, some of them that were leaning more of an independent, was kind of excited about the prospect of Harris being, but then I think she just shot herself in the foot with her dialogue, the way she carried herself, and then when Trump won on a landslide, and now here we are, a week or two later, and now the Democrats are almost embarrassed. They're $20 million in debt, and they're pointing fingers at each other why they lost, and they're going to pay Beyonce $10 million, and now Trump's offered to pay their $20 million. I think we want some. For me, I want some. Let's focus on America. Let's get let's get all these things that Trump has said. I don't know that massive deportation is the answer, but that's what our president's going to do. That's what he's going to do. I mean, that kind of scares me a little bit. It kind of reminds me of the Secret Service in Nazi Germany, but
well, and that's to me, I think a lot of people feel that way. And if you listen to CNN and MSNBC and ABC and CBS and you listen to the mainstream media, that is the narrative. I think that fear is unrealized. I don't see that happening. Trump said the same thing when he ran in 2016. We're going to ban all Muslims, right? And he says it for that effect. So here's an idea on the way to do the deportation. Number one, you offer every single person who is here illegally to come forth, identify themselves. We'll send them back and we'll put them in the line to be able to come here with a green card. So all those who are here legitimately can do that. I do think if we could and if we do this low key, instead of making it antagonistic and going to fight against the mainstream media, we just do it, instead of it making a negative and we're going to deport people. Hey, you're here. You should not have come over the border. We've overextended our stay, and we can't afford this. So we're sending people back. And if you would like to be able to come back and be able to be here with legal status, not citizenship, but to be able to be here with legal status, I think that there's a play for that. I think I'm going to call them the Dreamer Pact. Remember during Obama's, but basically the children who were born here, their parents were here illegally, but they're basically, for all intents and purposes, they are American citizens.
Right.
They speak English; it's their main language. And if you sent them back that would be like you and I having to go to live in Mexico because they don't they don't even necessarily speak Spanish or whatever. By the way, I shouldn't isolate that to Mexico because there's a large footprint from all around the world. But I do feel as if there is there is a better spirit. There is a better energy. I talk about my 5D spiritual stuff. There's a better energy right now everywhere, I feel. And the only place it's not is for those who are still, in that real dark place, and they just keep recycling, they keep playing over those fears. And the mainstream media will continue to throw it. But I think that's just dying.
Yeah.
And I think most people are I'm just done with the negative. I'm just done with that. And I feel as if, even that AOC got rid of her pronouns. I mean, that's a pretty hefty step. And she said, you need to come to realization that, changes are here upon us. And anyway, I think that things are getting better.
I think relief and whatnot. Now, going back to the deportation thing, I think that's a fantastic idea. But allegedly, that a lot of the people that are here were, prior criminals or and things like that. So not everybody's going to raise their hand and say, okay, I'm here illegally. It's a practical way, but probably I'd be curious to see if that's what they do. And when I've mentioned Secret Service in Nazi Germany, I'm not suggesting that anybody in that is Nazi, but I'm just trying to think.
But you do feel how that association creates negative.
How do you do what Trump wants to do? You got to go door to door. How do you track them down? I mean, I don't know how. It sounds good, but what really is going to probably happen is the surge and the process of the fact that illegals are coming in is going to stop. It's not going to be as prevalent. He'll stop that. I don't think he can do much about what's here.
I believe that there will be a stop. Like we're gonna go back to locking up the border. We're gonna stay in Mexico, and all the policies that he had put in place that had actually pretty much slowed that migration down considerably. But I don't think there's going to be police states going to rap.
I don't either.
What I do think will happen is people are going to be pulled over, and if they're driving a car and you get pulled over and you're not a citizen, they're going to take you away.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, you're going to start to get into the left, and I'm going to say the crazy left, or the idea that any person who's here, it's a criminal offense to break up families to send them home. Well, as the guy who Trump just ported the head of the border, he said, when you pull over an American citizen and they're drunk, we separate them from their families. We take them to prison and we put them in jail. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And if they happen to be alone, well, then somebody else is going to have to come in to help them out. So the thing is, I feel as if those who are criminals and those who are doing that, yes, you may get the crazies on the left who are going to fight that, but I just don't think that dog is going to hunt anymore. I just think people, now obviously if, you start doing police roundups and, you start surrounding buildings and you start creating these chaotic things, that's going to pose a problem. But I think if, and the idea of Trump's approach to this is the vindication, the payback is success. And if in fact we start to make progress and, we start to, actually see us start drilling aggressively, start opening up some of the channels with oil and the ability for able to lower some of those overhead expenses, because ultimately oil affects everything, right? Opening up those pipelines that he had approved and that were immediately shut down. All of those things obviously will add to financial stimulation, but I think the world right now is going to 5D. And by that I mean, like we're going to stop the arguing and the push back and forth, and we're going to start saying, what are bigger solutions? What are bigger and better solutions? And I think, Trump actually led that with the whole NAFTA thing last time around, and he's like, what? Well, I'm going to leave NAFTA, and of course, and he does that because that's his little technique. Take it as far, you present a flag way out in front where you really want to be. This is in his book. If you've never read his book, but The Art of Negotiation, or The Art of the Deal. You set an expectation here. We're gonna deport all illegals. Well, that's hyperbole out there, right? And everybody, you can't do that. Well, yes, I can. I can do that because I'm the blah blah blah. But in the meantime, he's willing to settle for halfway there. You know what I mean? But rather than having the fight here and being fought back to halfway less than that, he sets it way out there.
It's negotiation.
Yeah, and that's kind of what he does.
And that's what we do in real estate.
Right. And I do feel as if right now there is an energy, particularly on the right. I mean, and if I couldn't stand Twitter, and I was not a big Twitter fan. Obviously now I'm doing this 5D spiritual videos that we're creating and trying to create kind of some new ideas on this 5D spiritual stuff. I've now kind of reacclimated on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and starting to use some of these other mediums, because Rumble is kind of a problem in the sense that if you're not a Rumble person, every time you want to watch one of our videos, you got to click every 7 minutes or 6 minutes, they send an ad to you. And obviously all you have to do is sign up,
right,
and do that, and you can pay whatever it is if you want to stop them. But nonetheless, because of that, I'm seeing a lot more information, and it is so extensive, and it is so broad, and it is so encompassing, and we're all going to be pulled out of our own little thought paradigms. We're only right here, and this is our view, and I'm a Republican, conservative, whatever, and all of a sudden, those views are no longer the same. And listening to, it's a great podcast. Obviously, Tucker Carlson, I think, is an amazing voice. And he's talking to some of these new, younger conservatives, and they are not Dick Cheney war hawks. They are, we want peace, and we want stability, and we want sanity, and we do not want to be in a war with Russia. We do not want to be in a war with China. And let's start repurposing our negotiations and our thought paradigms to a better world than we've been in for the last 200 years. And I feel as if we're kind of at this new stepping off point.
And you think that,
particularly with AI,
that's kind of that relief from the Trump from the Trump victory? Is that what you're saying? You just kind of feel that, whether consciously or unconsciously, we are kind of adopting this, your 5D, the 5D concept. Do you think that if Harris would have won, we'd be having the same conversation about relief and 5D. What is your thoughts on that?
So my take, we're moving in 5D. What role does Trump play? Like, Trump plays every role. So in other words, whatever a person thinks about Trump, that's their point of view and that's their reality. I had a podcast on my Spiritual Quest blog with Dr. Moss, and he's a black college professor, a doctor, a neuroscientist. This guy's top of the food chain, intellect. And we talked, and he talked about the fear that minorities have towards Trump, because of the very thing that you said. Because of the term you say, well, we're afraid that he's like Nazis, and that, like those words carry massive amounts of spiritual energies, right? That make people afraid, And I feel as if, Trump being elected, that's going to happen. Yes, there's going to be some fears, but I think no matter who won and no matter what's going on the ground in our politics right now, we're going to move way beyond that. We're going to get AI in place. There is so much technology and so much advanced stuff that's coming. Well, I shouldn't say it's coming. It's already here. The thing is, we're not aware of it. We are not aware of it because it's kind of hid from us. Well, that stuff is now coming out. You listen to some of these congressional hearings and stuff. So much information is coming out, and so many groups of, I'm going to call it the infrastructure, the institutions are all under threat, right? And threat is a word. And I'm going to say they're under pressure to reform. They're under pressure to advance, right? There's however many, government workers there are, and they're all afraid of losing their job. Well, that's what happens in a corporation. When a business is failing, you come in and you move people out so that the company doesn't die. And we say, yeah, but this is America and we're a country. Well, all the more so, we need to be solid and stable, right? And instead, we're bringing in millions and millions of people who don't speak our language, and we're dumping them into schools, which are going to affect our own children's ability to learn and assimilate to become Americans, right? And all of those things that have been at play are now going to be rethought, rebalanced, and readdressed, I think, less politically and more strategically intelligent, and I'm going to call it 5D intellects on those changes.
I think that's a great ideal, and hopefully that happens, and we continue to progress in that mindset, because the 5D concept is a very positive way to live and look at things, and it's what we need. What is your biggest concern with the Trump presidency? I mean, it's not all a bed of roses. I mean, the world's
first of all, my fear of Trump is if the system fights Trump, Trump is a formidable enemy. And if the system embraces Trump and they love him and they kind of, and this is kind of what's happening with this whole unity coalition, the Robert F. Kennedys and the Eric Weinsteins and the Tucker Carlsons, right, and this Rebecca Ramaswamy, those guys, and this woman, Tulsi Gabbard. I think if everyone's with Trump and they're loving Trump and they're allowing Trump to go, and they say, yeah, we love what you're doing, yeah, we need to go there, but we need to soften that blow a little bit. And I think if he's encouraged and he's supported by the country and the media when we get behind him, as the media would if it was a Democrat. Mm-hmm. Imagine they get behind him and they start saying, hey, I think not only can he help America, I think he can change the world. I really think that he's that type of a personality, that type of a dynamic salesman, an idol. And it's ideological. The strength of the ideological aspects of him, he's at the end of life. So he's not going to be an influence for another 10 years, you know. But I think for the next 4 years, if we actually wrap ourselves around him and we move with him to say, let's solve problems, because that's kind of his thing. He's not an ideologue. He doesn't really have that. But in the event that you keep attacking him and keep attacking him as they've been doing, and he just is a remain above the fray, and everyone from the left goes, what are you kidding me? He's a flipping crazy. When you actually drill into people who say, you know, Trump's a racist, Trump's a Nazi, all those things, like what is it truly that you're afraid of? Like what is it, do you think, that people are afraid of Trump? And you said that you're afraid that he may be like in Nazi Germany, right? Which obviously creates a totally fear thing. And I feel as if that is propaganda, and it's hyperbole to get people to be afraid of him.
No, what I said was I was suggesting, questioning, how can we practically deport people? And what I said was, if we go house to house, it will be similar to Nazi Germany.
I would be afraid.
I did not say that Trump is a Nazi, nor did I say that that's the tactic they're going to do. But you had posed the possibility of people raising their hands, going forth and say, yep, I'm here illegally, and oh yeah, I'll go back to my country where I wanted to leave anyway, and I'll put my name on a list that's probably like master's tickets. It'll take 100 years to get, but no, I did not say that. But what?
For fear of ending up in jail. By the way, just on your behalf, I'm not accusing you that those words about whether it was something to do with Nazi Germany, that word creates attention, and that word, and I say they, I'm talking about the mainstream media and the hyperbolic left. They throw everything. He's a danger to democracy, or whatever those terms are. He's a threat to democracy, and in fact, those types of terms kind of create a spiritual energy around that makes people freak out. And
a little bit
those
afraid
are the things I hope
will
get above and beyond.
Of his control. And it looks like, unlike his last presidency, he's going to have a Republican majority in Congress, right? So both the House and Senate. So it's a little different ballgame now in terms of his policies being presented and now backed by the second governing body, which is Congress. So hopefully, that will be an interesting mindset. I think for me that the billions of dollars we're sending to Ukraine and has to stop. We have to start taking care of our own people, and that has to stop. They say he's buddies with Putin, and they had some bullshit that he and Putin talked, the day after he won was, then I see that's bullshit. Who knows what's true anymore? But the general sigh of relief, followed by America in general just tired of this negative output and negative campaigning. I mean, I was lucky in my campaign. I didn't get a hit piece thrown on me. God knows if my pastor could have been. They could have had a smorgasbord of shit. But it was so, I couldn't even watch TV the last week of the campaign. I never, even although I'm a jock, I'm a sports guy, all I watched was sports. I just could not watch even the local news. And I quit reading my Google News feed because it was just negative. It was negative. And hopefully we can just move to a positive mindset, into a 5D mindset, and take care of the problems that we have domestically. I've said that back to when I first started, my first vote in 1972. So I feel
as if there's a direction of cleaning house. There is going to be change, and people who don't want change, that's scary all the time. And if you're employed by the government, and if you've been employed by the government and you had been involved in activities that could be, viewed as undermining, I'm trying to think of examples of this, but if you were under the FBI and you were spying on American citizens and you signed your name to the letter that said that this laptop, which you knew, the FBI knew that was Hunter Biden's laptop, and you signed your name to that, I think every one of those people who signed their name should immediately lose their clearance. Mm-hmm. Because clearly they were part of a manipulating game. And I think if you happen to be in office, and by the way, you've been coasting in office, and you get your paycheck and you show up 3 times a week and you're drinking coffee and you're not really doing anything, I would worry about you losing your job, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think as far as for them it is, but in the grand scheme of things, we need productivity and accountability, and a lot of the government programs, like a lot of stuff that ends up under the government purview. So I'm going to think back, as kids, we didn't have all these massive government spending, right? You didn't have all this stuff. Instead, you had the Elks Club and the Moose Lodge and the Irish American Club and the Italian American Club, and you had the Shriners and all of these communities, and we had charities, and the fact of having a charity was because my dad died of Alzheimer's, so I make it my life's ambition to raise money to fight Alzheimer's. And I start doing that, and I start making money, and all of a sudden money's coming in, and we're making progress, and that money is going towards whatever. And then the government comes up and says, whoa, wait a minute. This guy's collecting all the money. How do we know that the money's going to the charity? You know what we're going to do? We're going to set up a government program to run that. So now we take all the money that was going to this charity and was dovetailed out. Now maybe there was some moving money around, who knows, right? But now you're going to put it through an entire government agency. You're going to employ hundreds of people to manage this money. All it does is create layer and layer and layer of red tape, right, bullshit, and government oversight and government overreach and government power. And that's kind of, we're all of a sudden, we're all waking up and we realize we're in chains. Those chains are going to be cut, and while Trump's going to cut some and he's going to try to do it surgically, it's my 5D perception. It's just breaking apart. It's just breaking apart, and those of us who are afraid, that's the evidence that it's breaking apart. You can feel that it's going to break apart, but I would say that it's not going to be a breaking apart, it's a breaking free. So a lot of these people who have been stuck in a bad job, they've been working for the government, and they've been cheating the system, or they've been, negotiating their paycheck because they're an inside guy and they play golf 3 times a week and they're not really accountable. All of a sudden they're on the street. And so what do? They realize that they have a lot of expertise in a particular area that they were doing in the government. They can start their own business. So now they say, okay, let's do something in the private sector where we can actually start making influence. And then you know what happens? They feed their soul spiritually, because now they're actually doing something that's giving them something productive to do, right? But now it's something that they can take pride and honor in, right? And they can now leverage their skill sets and talents to actually make a positive impact, instead of being parasites on the system and just taking the money away from the guy who decided that he was going to help raise money for Alzheimer's. Instead, they set up a government program to take all that money.
See, I again, that's a great idealistic mindset, but I don't think that's practical, because you're either an entrepreneur or you're not. If those guys that government employee had an entrepreneurial spirit, he would not be happy with himself sitting in a job collecting a paycheck just because. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you own your own business. I've owned my own business my whole life. I've never worked for anybody. I've never had anybody sign my paycheck. It's a very risky and a very scary position. Sometimes I wish I would have taken that government job and had the nice check and the pension, but the spirit of entrepreneurship and being able to put your head on the guillotine every day. I call myself my business. I wake up every day unemployed because if somebody doesn't hire me, I don't make money. That's a different mindset. And I don't know that all of a sudden, when Trump does lean and clean the government, which he will, take advantage of not only just the fat that's there, but also the replacing of things with AI. Right. I think that's a great ideal, but the people I know that have in government, and when I ran for a political office and I knew the inner workings of the office I ran for, those people couldn't go out and do what I do at all. So they would look for another.
So what I will say is, someone who's an entrepreneur will see that need in the marketplace. They will step up and they will start moving in that direction. And the employees who work for the government, who have experience in that, will now be employees in the private sector, and not under a government page. Because the other problem with America is we don't fire anybody. It's gotten to the point where these people who have been completely incompetent, and I think Trump actually passed some kind of executive order that's going to allow him to identify a certain percentage of government workers into a particular category where they can be laid off or fired. I don't know if, I don't have any expertise on that, but that's what I've heard. But if that's the case, I do think that there needs to be some type of house cleaning to take place. But when things break apart, they come back together usually better. So you think about, we get a hurricane and we're traumatized because we don't want to have a hurricane, and then you get hit by a hurricane and you lose your whole house and you lost all your stuff and you literally lost everything, right? Well, spiritually, that like completely frees you from all the shit that you're tied to. And then all of a sudden you get to the other side, and now you repurpose, you repackage, you fix, you get everything back, and then you find out, I kind of like my life better now than I did before that happened. I would have never chosen this path, but after you go through the stress and you go through the turmoil and you go through that trauma, the reward on the other side is that much more rewarding. And I feel as if we, as a civilization, as obviously as a country, and as every governmental agency, everything is falling apart, and everything is just coming undone. But as it does, we're all going to start to see how things can be better, and we're no longer going to be fighting from the trying to maneuver, the Republicans or the Democrats or this program or that program. We're all of a sudden going to come up here and we're going to say, whoa. And you're going to get brilliant guys like Elon Musk, and they're going to say, hey, look, we can set up a system right now that can do this, and we can better manage the way the government spending is taking place. I think that they've developed some kind of an efficiency department.
Him and that Ramsdam.
Yeah. So those two guys, both of them CEOs, both of them entrepreneurs, both of them brilliant. Trump, entrepreneur, we're going to see a lot of positive things happening. And if we as a nation, particularly those of us on the left, if we don't just claw and drag and hang on him, and everyone's jumping on the guy who's trying to lead the fight, and you're jumping on him and you're sticking your fingers in his eyes, because I feel as if that's what he went through in his last term. If it's like that, I don't know. Things make it a lot more uncomfortable. But I'm hoping it's more positive.
That was certainly behind the scenes, but America spoke. I mean, he won by a landslide, not only with electoral votes. America was different than what the media is portraying. On a local level, or actually on a state level, we had several amendments that were pretty controversial. One was the abortion amendment in Florida, as well as the marijuana amendment. Our governor very much was vocal in his position regarding these controversial amendments. What do you think about a governor stepping in and making statements and with the sole goal of influencing voters? You think a governor should influence voters? Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, that the governor is the leader, so the governor should be leading, right? So you don't stay out of that abortion issue. So I've got a 5D abortion position, right? And which side do you come down on? Pro-choice or pro-life?
Me?
Yeah.
Pro-choice.
Okay. So I am going to say, as a country, as a nation, as a civilization, as a humanity, we must be pro-life. Everybody is pro-life. We don't plan to kill our own offspring. So as a government and as a country, we do pro-life. Every dollar that we spend should be spent to help a girl who gets into a situation where she can't deal with something, that we can help them come to term, and we can help support life, and we can help be pro-life. Oh, so we're a pro-life nation. But also, as part of a pro-life nation, every woman has the free choice to do what she wants to do with her body up at any point in time, but she's going to deal with her doctor, the father of the baby, her family, her church, her community, her organization, which, by the way, is all pro-life, and they're all going to help her do the best decision that we can do for ourselves as a humanity. So I am a pro-life, pro-choice, 5D perception. That's what it is. That's a 5D perception. Pro-life
Well, you
should
pose
be,
the question
should have been.
as an either or.
Well,
But now
because
you
that's
kinda
the way it's
now
been.
you kind of blend the two,
It's
right?
5D. By the way, give me 10. All right, give me 5.
There's 10 only with one hand. I have a hard time with because I know a little more than I did about politics. When DeSantis was promoting his beliefs on those two particular amendments, it was for a purpose. It was for a political purpose, probably financial purpose. I don't trust any of that. I think I would have preferred him to kind of leave it alone and let the PACs do all their negative shit and all the politicians do whatever they do. I mean, the PACs are the most evil thing in America in politics. I will tell you that firsthand knowledge. But the marijuana was interesting. I think I didn't know, and I don't know if most Floridians knew that you had to have 60% of the vote to pass it. It actually passed by majority vote. So the majority of Florida voted for it, yet it went down, and
because it wasn't proposed by the legislature.
Right.
So let me ask you this. To me, politics is a game of influence. It's a game to try to maneuver things. It's literally the way that we try to influence our society. And yes, the PACs kind of go really negative and dirty and oftentimes off. What were the things that the governor did that you felt were inappropriate, or
I think he should have.
rethought?
I think he should govern the state and not his own personal beliefs on amendments that are politically, that are socially the decision of the people within the state. I think that the amendments were there. I think it should have been more of an educational outpouring and whatnot than it was. I mean, how many people read the ballot before they go in the voting box? Not many. So you go in your voting box, you got to read, and the way they write those amendments are hard, very hard to figure. They sometimes
they're designed to deceive.
Yeah, they have double negatives and whatnot. So I'm a DeSantis fan. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like DeSantis. I think he's done good. I just would rather the narrative from the highest political office in the state be a little less biased and let the people not try to influence people. But the problem is that just like the judges, the Supreme Court judges. I mean, how many people know a Supreme Court judge? Should we retain John Doe as Chief of Justice? How many people even know any of those? You either all yes or all no. In fact, one of the ladies at the party the other night.
Stain.
Yeah, one of the ladies at the party last night, when one of our judges was asking her how they voted on that, she goes, "Well, I just started left," and I go left and right, and left and right, then left and right. I go, "Well, there you go," But
it's the way I used to do my tests in school. That's why I failed.
I took multiple choice. Everything was C, right? So, but those were pretty powerful amendments that didn't get as much attention as it should have. Marijuana is a huge business. There's goods and bads. But the way they presented it, like only 2 or 3 companies could actually sell it. You couldn't grow it at home. None of those facts were true. And yet the PACs are able to come out and say what they want to say, and people hear what they want to hear. And that's kind of contrary to your 5D and the 5D process. But in reality, I think that's true. In a paragraph, they remember the words they want to remember. In a book, they remember a couple parts of the story. But the local and the state politics is something that I'm being drawn into and have a little more knowledge at this point in time than I want, because I don't know what I don't know. But it bothers me as high up as the influence on things can go. It just bothers me how the influence of our top political person can be, and that's the way it is with our president too. So I get that.
Let me offer a 5D thought.
Love it.
On this. So, if you imagine that, that we got a hotel call this hotel, and there's 100 floors in this hotel, and there's this one floor in the hotel, and that floor on the hotel is the abortion floor. Everyone on that floor is fighting to pro-choice, or they're fighting pro-life, and this yin and yang energy is constantly maneuvering right within that particular floor of our humanity. That's the abortion floor. The people who are actually, and if that's your cause, and you absolutely feel that you're ready to die for that, or that's the absolute most important thing, then that's your floor. That's where you belong. You belong making that. But I think the rest of us can look around and we can say, that's not my floor. So let the people on that floor make that decision. I've already told you the 5D solution. Pro-life and pro-choice. Mm-hmm. That we agree that we have a culture of life. We're not going to be killing our children. Like anyone that I would say who would be sane, if you had an animal, right, that was giving birth, and every time the young was born, the father or something would come up and would take the offspring, and that happens sometimes in nature, right? We would be totally upset with that, and anyone that would kill their own offspring that's a path to destruction. If you don't actually provide that. So if you think about that as a floor within humanity, the next floor is going to be the marijuana issue. The next floor is going to be the oil issue. The next floor is going to be this stuff that RFK is doing. What we want for food oversights and management. The next night is going to be what we do with pharmaceutical, and then there's fights about vaccinations. And every one of these issues, right, is a floor in the matrix. And individually, we shouldn't be weighing in on every floor, because most of us know nothing. So I appreciate it when you said, if you don't know, abstain. So they send you the thing so you can read in advance so as to know what's going on. And yes, they are deliberately designed to be confusing. Yeah. So if you got a friend like the judge, you ask him, where are you going to go with these things? Or do you like these people? My approach to this, I don't know, so I don't vote.
That's smart.
And by not voting, I'm voting. I'm voting by not voting. You understand that?
So we had a couple of local elections, the superintendent of schools. Mm-hmm. Did you vote on that?
I did not.
Okay. We had an election with one of the county commissioners. Did you vote on that?
I did not. No, I didn't.
Did you write my name in? I'm kidding.
No. Obviously, your name was on the ballot during the previous.
My name was on the ballot.
Yeah. But, for me, I don't. Obviously, for the most part, I'm going to probably circle the Republican there if it's a Republican Democrat, just because I tend to want to support the red team.
Yeah,
I do happen to know. Yeah. Obviously, I see the signs around my neighborhood, but I don't weigh in because so I usually just ignore them. So I'm going to vote for the red Republican.
The people you know.
For the most part.
Yeah. I think a lot of people believe that if they don't check a box, their ballot won't be counted. And most people don't understand that that's not the case. But going back to your, and I don't want to make this an abortion topic, we're probably getting near the end anyway, but so you have the 5D pro-choice, pro-life blend, but you have a Supreme Court decision about abortion. How do you change the Supreme Court's case precedent on the abortion and implement your 5D kind of mix of both? The law doesn't really allow much of a compromise. Roe versus Wade.
I don't think you and I have the same understanding on that, because to me, Roe versus Wade was a bad decision in the beginning.
Sure.
Yeah. So it was a political thing that happened, and most judges and jurisprudence said this is a state's issue. It's not a federal issue. So the fact that people in power and governors or whoever pushed it through and at what time, and I don't know because I'm not that sophisticated in those things, but that in essence that bill was passed with political pressure, and it was and basically it was won, and there was court precedence, and then it became, and then from then on, every time you watched a judge, everyone knew that they wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade,
right?
Because it wasn't that they wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade as much as it was they wanted to be able to go back to being a
state-controlled issue.
But the issue of abortion is way more deep and way more emotionally tied to our culture.
A lot of components. It's got a legal component, got a spiritual component. It's got
exactly. So the idea of the government position is our government. We should be pro-life. That should be our culture. Why would you want to live in a culture where people kill their offspring, like almost like it's being used for birth control? I mean, that's to me that's scary. And I would say, you know, if you owned a farm and you had too many pigs and you couldn't feed them all, you wouldn't start slaughtering the babies that come out. You know, you'd be bringing the babies out, you'd be saving them, you'd be giving them to a farmer who could take care of them. Because if we're not pro-life, like we're in a really, really dark place spiritually, and you know, we have got to be pro-life, and we are organically. You know, as a kid, you watch a lion take down a zebra, and you're traumatized, and you're angry at the lion for doing that, right? Because there's something inside of our soul that feels that there's an injustice there, and so we can feel the pain of the lost zebra. That's different than killing your own offspring. I mean, to me, that is just such an unhealthy thing for our culture. This is why I do like that guy J.D. Vance, because he said we have to have a culture of pro-life. Like we really need to support families. We should be encouraging marriage. We should be encouraging people to have children and have families and raise families, because that in fact helps to keep our culture, you know, organized and I call it the feminine energies of love and connection. Like those are the things that keep us going. And the battling that we do in politics and the arguments on those things, that's something that's going to take place all the time. But I feel as if the people having that argument needs to be the woman who's making the decision. And she's got a doctor who can support her or not, right? And that she's going to have a community that supports her, and she's going to have a church that supports her, right? And we're not going to deny her the ability to have that, to make that abortion choice if that's ultimately the decision that she makes. And the consequences to that are on that person who makes that decision.
What about the person who has no support, all by themselves?
That's why we need to have a pro-life culture. So all of our money and all of our culture and all of our community and everyone we do, we help. We're pro-life. We're going to help you through this. We're going to help you manage this. We're going to provide you with the money. We're going to provide you with the funding.
So all that sounds good. Why are so many abortions performed? Why do women or men? I think for many years, I know back in my college days, anybody could walk into our campus clinic and have an abortion, no question.
But why wasn't that happening all the time?
It was happening all the time.
It was a different culture.
Of course it was. It was a different era, but and I'm not arguing with your mix of pro-choice, pro-life. Actually, I think it's kind of brilliant, but it's...
Oh, say that again.
And I don't say that much about you, but there's there's the poor. I'm not talking poor ethnic, by ethnicity or by money, but there's sometimes females get pregnant and they're all alone.
And so the
Parents
choice
won't
is
support them. They're not a member of a church, or they're an atheist, or what, and they just don't want to have a baby.
She should have the right to make that choice. But our culture and our society, we need to be pro-life, so right. that culture happens. And it almost goes back to the days when welfare, you know what I mean? And it was kind of like, if and I just remember growing up in the early 60s, we had the kids who were on like Section 8 housing. And that was like, oh, they lived in Section 8 housing. And it was almost like they were ashamed to even say those things. They were almost like embarrassed of it, right? Or the kids who got, a lunch voucher. So they weren't paying for their own lunch. So somehow they were getting a school lunch that was paid for.
Right.
Like there was a stigma attached to the fact that, well, apparently they're not carrying their own weight. Instead, they're relying on the system to take care of them. That was the case with getting pregnant outside of marriage. It was taboo. So you would have your child and they would go off to school and they'd go off and they'd give birth, and maybe they would put them up for adoption or whatever they would do. And that was a pro-life culture that we lived in. And the thing I think I fear more from the left is when they start wanting to break apart our culture. So think about the idea of murdering. And so I use the word murder because to me, I would never have an abortion because I would view that as murder. And so I would never encourage that. I would never support that in anyone that I had. And I would do everything I could to help, anyone that's in my family or in my situation to make that happen. But on the same token, the woman has the right to make that choice, and she should have access to a safe abortion if ultimately that's the decision that needs to be made. But I think it needs to have a stigma, a negative stigma, as being something that we're killing a human being.
Make it a tough decision.
Yeah. Pro-life versus pro-choice.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Good.
So, what do you think about the cart paths at Whiskey Creek?
Well, I'm going to tell you what. I think the cart paths at Whiskey Creek are awesome.
I do too.
The fact of the matter is that action's finally taking, and some people said, "Oh, the board is in chaos." Good. We should be in chaos. I mean, that's chaos creates balance. You know what I mean? Instead, you try to keep everything okay, and then things start to fall apart, and no one wants to see things falling apart. No, everything's falling apart, so let's get on it, and let's come up with some solutions. And by the way, let's argue about it, and let's get passionate about it, and then let's move in a direction. And I think that's what we've done. They put that drainage in across 18, right? Yeah, 18 and 11.
Yeah.
So that's going to hopefully pick that up. And then they went down, and they went around 13 and 14, that whole area that gets wet.
So I think last night's event, and congratulations, and Meg, and
yes,
enjoy life, and hopefully I'll get to
Amen.
play golf with you soon. And Mark, you did a great job.
She's an amazing woman. I mean, she has just accomplished
who are
so much.
brothers?
In her life.
Did you hear their speeches?
I
Those
heard
were
every one of
those
them,
were
yeah.
touching.
Yeah.
But we were talking. I mean, last night's event. I mean, there was outsiders. I saw a lot of attorneys I haven't seen, and people I saw on the campaign trail, and pretty cool people. And but there's a lot of members there. I would say half of the room was members, and I think we need to have more member events like that. Like, put out some finger food and just say we're going to have a member mixer on. So maybe have some music with you and Bob or whatever, and just make it finger food. You don't have to have ribs. I mean, just.
Well, first of all, I love that
out.
idea, and they were talking about doing that. In fact, we're going to try to do a little Bob West plays guitar, or West.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to do like a.
But when we're all together, we're all yakking, and the room's buzzing, and everybody's having fun.
Yes.
And we only have like 2. You have the men's league those 2 days. Then you have the early birds, where it's a co-ed. But what else do we really do as a member?
It's interesting.
Other than dinners.
It's interesting you say that, but we used to have the Friday night dinner, like, and maybe you had like the Friday night once a month, dinner or something. But that whole culture is gone. So people, I feel as if that whole it's kind of like the PGA versus this new you know what I mean, and they're and I don't say it has to be either or. I think there's room for both of these things.
Yeah.
But I do feel as if that's the case, and obviously I think if the food were better and some of the services were to improve, and I try to go back and support it because I love my club and I want to do that, but I just always feel as if it's not outstanding, and I would like to be able to go there and have it be outstanding.
And I'm sure you're not. I am not criticizing the kitchen staff or the chef, or I don't even know who does the cooking. I mean, that buffet we had at that not last night, but the last tournament, it was pretty good, But
they do good on those,
But make it simple. They don't have to have lobster and salmon at dinner night. Let's have some more member activities, other than bingo and bunko and
those are all member activities. So what could we do?
But like last night, you take out half the room, all the lawyers and the chief justices, and you'd have 50 or more members in there just simply drinking cocktails or having a drink of their choice and talking.
Well, that's kind of what we do after. Well, that's what we do after every round of golf. But you always leave.
There's always 20. No. I stayed last time.
Well, on Thursday afternoons, it's quite a good. By the way,
it's hard.
We're out of time. But this is a great conversation, and for any of our locals who want to,
we have to get some local
support
stuff,
podcast by coming on or making a comment or sharing it with your friends and neighbors. That's great. Appreciated.
Yeah.
And if not, that's okay too. We appreciate you buying in. Steve, thank you, brother.
You got it, Brian.
And we'll keep
Always
it going.
enjoy it.
All right.